Hello, everybody. On today's episode, I interview the author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, The Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read, which has sold over 100,000 copies. His latest book, Three Words I Used to Sell $100,000 Books, a counterintuitive strategy for nonfiction authors. It's a blueprint for book selling success, is now available on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. Welcome to the Winner Circle, Andrew Kapp.
Hey, Derek, thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here. Really excited wherever we might take this conversation. And we'll see how many mouthfuls I give, given that my book titles are both so long. I'm sure that'll be a fun part of the conversation as well.
Yes, absolutely. And we were speaking before this recording, the goal of this podcast and the goal of these conversations is really to uplift, inspire, and empower everyone tuning in, everyone listening to this frequency, to move forward with greater faith and belief in themselves on their hero's journey ahead. And I'm really excited to explore your hero's journey. But before we get there, let's set this up on a nice frequency and let's talk about something really important. And that is, what do you love? What do you love about your world right now, Andrew? Not the external world, but what do you love about your personal world in this moment?
So I think when people see something that they define as successful, they make a projection that all of a sudden things are perfect, And for me, my day-to-day life experience is far from perfect. But what I do like about myself right now and where my world and my life are going is that I've gotten very good, very adept, very skilled at identifying when there's some kind of BS story that I'm telling myself that's throwing me off or ruining my day or distracting me or basically wasting my time worrying about something that I have no business worrying about. So what I'm really liking right now is the speed with which I'm finding ways of getting back into, okay, everything's all good. I'm a happy camper. There's so many things to be grateful for, and keeping that with me as I carry through into every single day.
Absolutely. What's an example of a BS story you recently shed and let go of, where you're in the process of doing so?
So I'm glad you bring that up, because I'm about to bring up something that it's so silly and it's so trivial. It's like, it's really so stupid. And I'm glad that you're bringing up, and I'm glad I'm saying this and almost sounding silly in this, because it's these little things that really shouldn't bother us that they do. But it's like, I had ordered something that I'm going to give as a gift, this in the holidays, and the tracking was delayed. And it just annoyed me. I'm like, what the, because like I paid for a certain kind of tracking to get it a certain amount of time because I want to make sure that I can get the gift on time. And they had like a routing error and it got delayed by like 5 days. And it just got under my skin. But the thing is, me being the person that I am, I had over prepared and ordered way earlier anyway, so that if they make a 5-day delay or a 10-day delay, I'm still doing it. But it's so funny how somebody making a simple, innocent mistake just annoyed me and got under my skin on a simple everyday thing of life. And I think, again, we all fall into that, whether it's our package not getting on time, or our food not being as cold or hot as we wanted, or who knows what else, our tie not fitting the exact right way. It's funny how these little things get under our skin and keep us from, really the pathway and the journey we are in life to happier days, happier experiences, and more successful events.
Well, thanks for exemplifying that. And I think like a very important step at eliminating this BS is just acknowledging, becoming aware of it. And with awareness, we could employ our tool of choice and let it go, or we can let it bother us all day. It's our choice. With that awareness, it's now on us. It's now our opportunity.
And in this case, I mean, who knows who made a mistake? It's this person that I'll never meet. We also have people in our lives that tend to get under our skin or to do something. Sometimes they do things that we view as intentional, and maybe they even are intentional, and we still use. It's like, if someone's doing something to get under your skin or to upset you, are you really winning by letting that carry over and throw you off? It's one of those things where I've gotten to a point where, again, I'm not, obviously, I'm not invincible here and things bother me, but I'll get to a point where it's like, no, I see what's going on here. I see the pathway, and I understand which reactions or a continued reaction is going to really be more for my benefit, and which reaction is just going to hold me back and really ruin my day or my week or my month or my year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the choosing of how can I find the opportunity in this? And maybe the opportunity is forgiveness for whoever lost your package, or patience or compassion. There's just so much richness to be found in any situation if we choose it to be.
Yeah. And my go-to is gratitude. It's like, okay, someone lost my package. That completely on the side. How about I remind myself that I have a heart that's beating in my chest right now, that's been beating every single second of every minute, of every hour, of every day, of every week, of every month, of every year, of every decade I've been alive. It's as we're speaking, your heart and my heart, they're beating tirelessly, sending blood and nutrients to the other parts of the world. How could you not be grateful for that if you just stop and think about it? And then all of a sudden, yeah, that package thing's annoying, or that person who's trying to get under your skin is annoying, or that, that sale that didn't go through, or whatever it might be. And some things that really, have a big impact, but it's like, whoa, I have a heart beating in my chest right now, like constantly. Let me focus on that. Like it's amazing, a bit, just gushing gratitude when you think about that. And you think about all your friends, you think about all your mentors, you think about everyone that's been on your side, everyone that's been on your corner. You think about the Dereks of the world who came out of the blue and invited you on their awesome podcast. Like, whoa, okay, there were years ago, and I'm sure we'll get into this point. There was a time where no one would have bothered to reach out to me, would have no interest in anything I was doing, any book I had written, any message that I had to share. So like, how can I let me think about all the things that are going well for me that have nothing to do with whatever that thing is that actually annoyed me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm absolutely excited to explore the origin stories and how you've adapted this mindset that you bring to the table today. But before we do so, there's a question I ask every guest at the start of the podcast. And it's a really great question, so that our audience can kind of get a little snapshot on who this person is. And that is your personal mission here in this reality plane. And not your mission as an author, not your mission as a friend, or it's your mission in everything that you do, your overarching mission in all that you do. What would that be, Andrew?
So it almost sounds a little dramatic, but my mission is kind of like an open-ended mission for anyone that might cross my path in some way, shape, or form, whether it is a book or it's a simple conversation with a stranger. My mission is to do my part in facilitating a better life experience for people, myself included, whether that's a simple compliment that someone might need, whether that's information in a book that might really help them, whether that's doing somebody a favor, whatever it might be. When I get an email, when I get a question, my mission is like, what can I do to facilitate a better experience for everybody?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So the show is called Welcome to the Winner Circle. And to me, winning means embracing the process rather than being destination oriented. We live in a very destination oriented society, and culture. When I get this job, when I get this relationship, when I get this XYZ, I'll be happy. And then maybe you get there and there's a momentary happiness, and there's always a now what. But that's because we've been missing the sweetness of the song. And that's the process, the journey, the highs and lows on the path, the infinite now. So for me, winning is just moving forward in the embodiment of who you wish to be, because your desire, your dream is already here. And then it's for us to surrender back into in the now. What does winning mean to you, Andrew? And what does winning in your life look like for you today? What does a day in the life of Andrew Cap look like?
Winning is a recognition of what you just said, in that an ability to appreciate the journey. Because, and again, I'm glad you brought this up, and we really resonate in terms of our outlook. Those moments when you get that thing are so fleeting. And it's funny, let's pretend that the thing that you want brings you like major satisfaction. You just spent the last 10 years or 10 months or whatever, like going after that thing. You have a pattern of thought in your mind right now that is always constantly reaching. So even when you get that thing and you're enjoying it, there's a repeated pattern of thoughts that's like, you feel almost out of place if you're not reaching for something, which is part of the reason why you reach for something else really quick. And I think it isn't a recognition of, you have to find a way to enjoy the journey, because you think about it, you want this thing, and maybe it's a day off, or maybe it's a decade off. what can you do in the meantime? Because what shame is it if you've got this wonderful goal like a mansion or a car or whatever it might be, and you've got to wait 10 years for it? What kind of tragedy that you don't enjoy your life in the meantime? And I say in the meantime very intentionally, because since we get that thing that we want and then it's right away we want something else, when you actually think about it on a macro level, in the meantime is actually all the time that we ever have. So winning is having a recognition of that and finding a way of, in spite of the fact that the thing isn't there yet, finding a way to enjoy life in the meantime. And the real trick, the super ninja hack to all this is when you actually find a way of doing that, the things that you want come way faster and way better without you having to try harder. I mean, if you maybe you give more effort, but that's because it's a natural progression of your thought. But these things come way more naturally when you find that hack, when you find that way of saying, okay, whenever this thing comes, I have to enjoy my life in the meantime. I have to celebrate the little wins on the way to that. I have to acknowledge all the things in my life that are good right now. Again, you're waiting for that package to arrive. Okay, that package is 5 days off that I just talked about, right? Am I going to spend the next 5 days like stewing over that? Or am I going to like read a new 5-star review on Amazon, be like, oh my God, how grateful am I for that? Or am I going to make a new YouTube video and support my business? Or am I going to reach out to a friend and catch up? Am I going to have a conversation with Derek? Like, you can't wait for that thing. It's and nothing else, because you're wasting your life when you do that.
Wow, so well said. So winning to you in your life looks like what now, Andrew? What does a typical day in your life look like?
So the winning looks like there not being a typical day. That's me. Like for me, it's and it wasn't always like this. I have built up a life currently where I have the luxury of, if I want to be lazy, I can. I try not to be, but if I really want to slack off the whole, so here's the thing: if somebody emails me, I'm like militant about getting back to them because I don't want my customers and readers waiting for me. But besides something that comes in and needs attention, if I really want to, I can literally like take a month off and do nothing. And or I can say, you know what, today I'm going to go to the park with a friend, or you know what, today I'm going to start writing a new book. Winning to me is the opportunity and the options of doing whatever I want and going with the flow, rather than having that cloud over my head of like, you have to do this. Oh, you got to do this to keep the train of sales rolling in, or you got to do this to make sure that you keep getting more YouTube subscribers. You got to get likes, you got to get views. Winning to me is not worrying about that stuff anymore.
And yeah, no, that is really admirable. In that freedom though, Andrew, are there any foundational pieces of your day that show up day in, day out that are important bases to your being?
Yeah, well, the emails coming for, it's kind of funny. I'm not doing it. Emails are coming to me, whether it's positive feedback or questions or whatever. That keeps me in a mode of service. Like, and I realize even like the things I'm saying, they sound a bit dramatic. Like for your audience, they don't view them as kind of like, you know, cheesy, but I know to certain people, it sounds dramatic. I'm in a mode of service. Like even in this conversation, I'm really hoping that I'm articulating, and I'm going to continue to articulate things that are actually going to be helpful. For me, part of my way of being is being of service to others. And it's selfish, by the way. It's not selfless, it's selfish, because human nature, us, you know, as a species, we actually rely on one another. You naturally feel good when you're doing something that helps somebody else. So I'm getting, you know, selfishly, which is, you know, ends up helping other people also. I'm feeling good when I find a way of like answering someone's question that clears out the cobwebs or whatever it might be. So for me, it's service, and not just service to others, but service to myself, meaning I have a health shake that I make every single day. I try to work out consistently, although I haven't been as good about that as I want to be. But for me, it's all about like the foundational cliche stuff that everybody tells you to do, that Gary Vaynerchuk has been telling everybody to do for the past 20 years or however long he's been out there. You know, eating right, working out, feeling good, meditating, like all those things, just trying to be very intentional about, you know, kind of feeding, sounds dramatic, feeding my soul, because I realize when I kind of take those actions, it helps me perform better when I'm on camera, when I'm responding to an email, when I'm recording a YouTube video, when I'm editing a YouTube video, when I'm writing an email or anything else.
So being of service for others and yourself are foundational pieces And as is self-care, which you alluded to, what are the foundational pieces of self-care that you attend to daily, and what does that look like?
Everyone's got their own thing. For me, I try to do DDP yoga. It's yoga, but it's by someone named Diamond Dallas Page, and he has his own system. I think a lot of people have heard of it.
Mhm.
I'm gonna start lifting again because I think it's very healthy to lift just to get your body under that. But yeah, yoga for me is a thing. And I mean, in terms of like, the health shake, it's like, I'm taking standard stuff. I'm taking, magnesium. I'm taking, um, not that I'm not a doctor. I don't recommend any of this stuff, but I'm taking, stuff that has like a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, cacao, and what else? It's so funny. I got like 30 things I take, and I don't even remember all of them off the top of my head. I just like throw zinc, like just standard foundational nutritional stuff.
Beautiful. So another thing about the winner circle is we like to celebrate our guests' achievements, and so often the people I have on are very humble, and you seem very humble yourself, Andrew. But I want to offer you opportunity just to bring forth and acknowledge some things you're successful for in any aspect of your life. So, what have been some of your biggest wins that you are most proud of?
So thank you for asking. I mean, the book in and of itself is a win because, and I realize, like, look at the title of this book, The Last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. It's very interesting because it invites a lot of opinions, and it sounds egotistical, but it was actually in the bold promise of the title, it was really a bold challenge to myself, because we might be skipping ahead here. But when I made the decision to finally give myself permission to write this book, it was with a recognition that there aren't like hundreds, there's like literally like over 1,000 law of attraction books out there, portion of which are actually good. And to me, it's like, if I'm going to write something like this, can I add something new to the conversation? And this title, like, I literally try to live up to it and making it that it's the last one people will never ever need to read. And we can go into this if you want. There's a reason, there's a way by which I did that. And for me, the 5-star reviews, the thousands of ratings and reviews from people, that to me is a huge accomplishment, because I put this bold promise, this bold statement out there, and people said, "Hey, Andrew, you actually made it work." And again, not that we want to get too attached to numbers, but numbers can actually be very beneficial. Passing 100,000 copies sold globally across all the formats, um, it is humbling. It's surreal, and even saying it out loud to this day, I'm like, wow, I'm the one that did that. That's crazy, but it's awesome. So for me, the book in and of itself, and then the success and the feedback, the emails I've gotten from people, that to me are like the huge accomplishments when I see people getting like huge wins based on, it isn't my brilliance. It's just the fact that I articulated a message in a way that it reached them in a way that they were able to use their own brilliance to actually do what they wanted to do.
Also amazing about it is it's a self-published book as well. This is not through a publisher. You created this all yourself. The book, and the Audible, it all. It's a Andrew Cap production, not a random house, or whatever book publisher. So that's like another really impressive piece
Thank
that I
you.
commend you on.
And it's funny when you have something like that, it's like there's pluses and minuses. I mean, obviously, the minuses, you don't have like a big, monster publishing house support for marketing. So you got to do your own marketing, which fortunately I'm reasonably good at. But also it allowed me to break some rules. Like, you look at the title, you look at the cover behind me, my name isn't on it. That was like, not just an artistic choice, but a strategic choice, in that, like, I am not the star. The content and really the reader are the star. So like by self-publishing, I basically, because I'm sure like a huge publishing house, they'd be like, no, you have to have your name on it. We have to do this, the subtitle also. We've got to do this and that. And I'm like, no, I'm get to break all these rules. And I encourage people, I mean, as long as you're not breaking any legal stuff, break rules, break with conventions, understand that there's ways of doing things that don't necessarily have to fit in with the status quo, because it's more often than not, it's the different person. Obviously you got to be good, you have to still be good, high quality, but it's always the different person or the different thing that makes the impact, not the same as everything else, because the same as everything else is something that people have already seen. Therefore, they're not excited or enthusiastic about it.
Aside from the book, what are some other big wins that you're most proud of?
Well, along the lines of the book, just the the current success of the business, because it's not my first business. The first business I ever did crashed and burned. The quality of relationships that I have with people to this day, like, when you're younger, I mean, now, you got friends in high school, you got friends in college, and people fall by the wayside. I'm really proud of the friendships that I have now, because the friendships I currently have still, they've either evolved from the past where we've kind of like grown together and been able to maintain it, or, I've been able to make new friends. And I mean, the older you get, they say the harder it is, because you're just not in the same circles and you're not doing the same things. For me, making these new friendships and connecting with these new people are also huge accomplishments.
Mhm. This is definitely something I'd love to continue to explore. I don't hear it talked about much. So yeah, let's talk about how you've maintained your past friendships, and then how you also created space to make new ones and form these new relationships. And how have you let go of ones that no longer served you as well? Just everything you've learned about friendships on this path.
Yeah, so I kind of learned the hard way in terms of maintaining the old friendships and letting the old friendships go. It's actually a very natural thing, is as long as you're willing to meet people halfway. And what I mean by that is, you know, be willing to be the person that reaches out like, hey, it's been a year, haven't forgotten about you. Do you want to hang out? Do you want to catch up? And certain people will say yes, and certain people will say no. It's like and as you grow, as you do things, as you publish a book and get sales or get success, you might have haters talking about you behind their back, and they'll just ignore you or whatever. They fall by the wayside. The people that stay with you, it's just like when you bring up a challenge that you have, or you bring up an accomplishment, they have their own life story, and you're just vibing. It's more of like of a recognition of, are you still vibing with people? If you are, awesome, you see where it goes. And if you're not, you don't try to force it out of some misidentified, need to maintain something, even if they were very important to you when you were in the 7th grade. Because when you think about it, that person doesn't technically exist anymore. You happen to look a little like that person and share some of their core qualities, but that you in the 7th grade is not you anymore. And that them in the 7th grade is not them anymore. So you're not even losing that person, because technically you already have lost them. And that's not necessarily a tragedy. In terms of new friendships, it's more like, when you're enthusiastic about things that you do, you will go to events. Like for me, trying to run my business, I would go to marketing events, in person. Well, these days online, but like I would join communities. And when you join those communities, you don't become everybody's friend, but you find yourself vibing with certain people, being on the same page with certain people, and things just happening from there. So it's more like not forcing it, being willing to be open, not being judgmental of yourself if you're not very extroverted. Like, you don't have to be like this brilliant conversationalist in order to be. It's kind of funny. Some people, I wonder if I'm one of them. They're so in love with hearing themselves speak. You could literally just stand there and nod, and they'll fall in love with you. Like, some people, even they don't need you to contribute too much to the conversation if they're talking. And then the little times that you do, if it's something that's useful, it just vibes. And the perfect example of, like, people ask me like, hey, Andrew, what's the law of attraction thing that you do every single day? Well, every single day I pull out my phone and I hit the recorder app, and I talk for a few minutes on all the things that I'm grateful for. And I always say it in the present tense, even if some of these things are kind of like off in the future. And I take this message and I send it off to a friend across the country who does the same thing for me. And what I don't say, and I haven't said often I don't think I've ever said in interviews, like, this person I do this with, I met him in 2015 through a community of entrepreneurs that I paid $5,000 to be a part of. It was like more like, you were getting a course and the community was a side thing. You paid $5,000 for the course. But for me, the course was nearly useless. It was the community. That was the reason that I bought into it to begin with. And, this $5,000 expense, which is like, it's not like I was rolling in $5,000 back then. It really lent itself to this thing where we've maintained contact so consistently, where about 5 years ago now, or 6 years ago, we're like, hey, let's try this experiment and let's share this gratitude message and see where our lives go. And, for me, the book, the 100,000 sales, for him, the career, the family, like all these massive leaps he's made in his relationships and in his life, we've observed each other do this through this process. And this is somebody, that friendship that I made 7 years ago at an event in Cancun, just networking with people after paying $5,000 to be there.
So to get this clear, Every week, you guys send a voice message to each other saying what you're grateful for that week, or like
Every day.
oh,
Every
every
day.
day.
Yeah.
And a voice note.
Yep. I just pull up my iPhone, I record the note, and then I attach it in the text message.
Okay. What's an example? What are you grateful for today? What did you like? Say in case someone wants to find a friend and do this with them.
Yeah. And keep in mind, obviously, this is very specific to me. Everyone's got their own thing, but I'm grateful for my Law of Attraction book. I'm grateful for my business. I'm grateful for all my readers and customers and listeners and subscribers. I'm grateful for all my 5-star reviews. I'm grateful for my platform and fulfillment support. Because like someone orders that book, I'm not the one boxing it. Someone else is doing the fulfillment for me. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for every recommendation, all the positive word of mouth. I'm grateful for my health, for my fitness. I'm grateful for my success and wealth and prosperity. I'm grateful for the good news today. I'm grateful for all the ways in which the universe continues to conspire in my favor and on my behalf. I'm grateful for my resources, for my resourcefulness, for my intelligence, for my creativity. I'm grateful for every podcast host I get to talk to, every podcast I'm featured on. I'm grateful for, all the massive wins that are on the way. I'm grateful for a very happy, successful, and fulfilling conclusion to 2022 into an even more happier, more successful, more abundant, more prolific 2023. That's just one small sample of what it is. I'm certainly grateful for 100,000 readers. I'm also grateful for 1 million readers because I know that's a reality also.
It's in process. And so that is an example of, so it's like a gratitude blitz, like you do a gratitude blitz. And so every day, is it different or is it the same, or just kind of whatever strikes you? Sometimes it's the same, sometimes there's different stuff.
So this is the funny thing for me. And by the way, this is it can be the same every day for anyone listening. It could be the exact same thing every day. It could be different every day. It's whatever works for you. I find myself often saying most of the same things because I'm grateful every day for those 100,000 readers and for the million on the way. I'm grateful every day for my health. But by that same token, sometimes something might happen that, I respond to. So like, for example, like with the shipping thing, I call that shipping thing like an open loop, because it's an unresolved thing in your life that you're just waiting for. So one of the things I'll include in the message is like, I'm grateful for all the open loops, closing with ease, closing with speed, closing with convenience, closing with zero stress. I might add that in. And the key to all this is it really, people make it their own. And you're right, Derek, it's a blitz. It's a combination of a blitz that I talk about in my book and spoken scripting, because it's both, right? Because it's stuff that's on the way, it's stuff that's here. So it's like my weird intermingling of these cool techniques that I teach into something that's convenient. That's the number one thing about all this. It's the thing that I talk about in my book. Any method works so long as it's fun and convenient enough that people can do it consistently. Because it could be the greatest method in the world. If you do it once a year, it's not going to bear the kind of fruit where if you do it every day, and you're only doing it every day because you actually enjoy it, not because you're desperately trying to attract something in a faster, specific fashion than might be ready for you.
Mm-hmm. And yeah. So, and it's also a combination of your past, present, and future from your book as well. Another great exercise from your last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need. The Law of Attraction is a big point of topic in this conversation so far. And for those that are listening, and I'm sure maybe there are some, they don't know what the Law of Attraction is. You have a YouTube page, many great videos. You have a 1 minute, there's the Law of Attraction 1 minute. But let's tell them here so they have that information. What is the Law of Attraction in the minute?
Yeah, it's funny because I made that YouTube video where I described it in 1 minute. So now I've got to like challenge myself to always beat that time. Law of Attraction, for people who haven't heard of it, it's basically just the understanding that, everything is energy. Your energy, I'm energy. The devices that we're speaking on is energy. And so are all of our thoughts. And all energy vibrates at certain frequencies. And like frequencies tend to attract and vibrate in resonance with other frequencies. So other like frequencies, which is another way of saying, like, if you think about this, you can intentionally choose certain thoughts that you want to help to, more intentionally attract things into your life rather than attracting on autopilot. And so really it's about it's basically, what you think about becomes your reality, to which sometimes people say, hey, Andrew, that's nice and everything. But, I've been thinking about that job promotion for like a year now. I've been thinking for a year, how come I don't have it? To which I asked them, okay, cool. When you're thinking about that job promotion, are you doing so with a sense of ease, and joy and gratitude and anticipation? Or are you thinking about that job promotion with a sense of impatience or frustration or fear or uncertainty or doubt? Because if you're thinking about the job promotion with those emotions, you're actually not thinking about the job promotion. You're thinking about the lack of the job promotion. And that's why you're so upset about the thing. You were inadvertently, reinforcing the energy, the vibration, the reality of not having that thing, which, by the way, if you don't believe in the law of attraction, if you don't believe in the universe, if you don't believe in energy, that's fine. Think about what you were telling your subconscious mind, which is the most powerful supercomputer still known to man, despite all the AI coming out. And it's like, imagine, if you're screaming to yourself without realizing it that you don't have the job promotion, you're going to inadvertently be taking actions and making decisions that hold you off from that job promotion. Whereas when you're thinking about it with anticipation and gratitude, all of a sudden, the way you carry yourself without even having to consciously think about it, it's going to be a different way. You're going to find yourself coming up with better ideas. People are going to notice you. People are going to be friendlier to you. Your boss is going to ask you to work on a Saturday, but you're going to be grateful and excited to do it. And then when that happens, you're going to get in a conversation and be in the boss's ear, and poof, before you know it, you're going to get that promotion. So law of attraction, whether you believe it or not, it finds a way of revealing to you the things that you actually think about with positive intention and positive thought and positive feeling.
Mm-hmm. And for some, this may not be easy at first, but it's like anything, like working out, like you said, lifting weights. It's about the reps. The more reps you put in, you're reprogramming that subconscious that has been programmed the other way by our society, consumerist culture. This is confused our innate knowing of our magical powers of creation from within. So it's just it's
and it's funny, Derek, that you bring up weightlifting, because whenever someone says like, oh, I don't really buy into this, I love to give them the oversimplified example of lifting weights to get more muscle, which very oversimplified, right? But with that understanding, I'll tell people, okay, how does that actually work? Like, you lift weights, you get more muscles. Well, let me give you two possible explanations as to how this actually happens. Explanation number one is you lift weights and then you go to sleep at night, and while you're sleeping, the muscle fairy comes, waves a little magic wand, and poof, the next day you wake up with more muscle. Explanation number two, which I realize is butchered, but people will get it. When you're working out, you're putting so much stress on your body that your muscles are actually tearing in little areas. And then your body heals itself by responding by filling in those gaps with more muscle fiber, hence more muscle. Now, while I realize this is a butchered explanation, I also imagine that, you ask most people, like, which is the real answer or the real reason, they're going to tell me it's that second one, to which I say, okay, well, unless you're a personal trainer or a massage therapist or something like that, it actually doesn't matter how it happens. All that matters is you lift weights, you get muscles. You put in X, you get Y. And by that same token, if you take 30 days with, just to be grateful and think about things that you want with positive emotion without worrying about the how or the when, by hook or by crook, good things will start to happen for you. And when they happen, please don't give me credit. Don't give my book credit. Don't give the law of attraction credit. Don't give the universe credit. Don't give any of that credit, but at least have the recognition that you tried this thing and these things happened, and use that as a positive excuse and reinforcement to continue with that process and see if even more good things happen for you, because spoiler alert, they will.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And your book has so many great strategies and ideas and exercises on how to put in the work, put in the practice. One of my favorite is scripting. And so scripting is like writing about, and you can pick, okay, like, what does my life look like in a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever time frame. And then you just write it as if like you are in that life right now. That's one of my favorite techniques. A technique that you just shared is gratitude and the gratitude blitz. Is there another easy strategy that you can give our listeners as just a little teaser on what you could find in more of the book? In the book, there's tons.
You actually touched, you touched on one before. We didn't give it a name, but one of my favorite methods, and the method not to put too much hype on it, but the method I was doing the most when, I had like my first financial breakthrough, like I guess 14 years ago at this point. And that's a time-lapse method. And basically, time-lapse method is pretty simple. And you're basically going to write down 15 things that you are grateful for. 5 are from your past, 5 are from your present, and 5 are things that you're looking forward to attracting in your future. They're all going to be written in the present tense. Like you say, hey, I'm grateful for my apartment. You don't know if that's your apartment from the past, the present, or the future. You say it in the present tense. And then you're going to take that list up and you're going to jumble it into a completely random order. Maybe the first thing is a present thing, and then a past, and then the present, then the future, all jumbled up. And with that jumbled up list, you go through each item on the list one at a time. You read through it out loud or inside your head, and you give yourself about a minute to feel grateful for that thing. And what you're really doing here is, you think about it, 2/3 of that list is real, meaning it already did happen or it is happening. And, your subconscious mind and your mind itself, it doesn't downshift very easily. So if you're going through that list, not only are you feeling wonderful about those things, but you're also feeling wonderful about the future things inserted with the same level of confidence and enthusiasm and anticipation, because your vibration has been carried over from the past and the present things as well.
So I'm excited to explore your origin story, how you got here. And yeah, you could start wherever you want. You mentioned 14 years ago you had a financial breakthrough, so I'm curious about that, but we could trace this back as far as you wish. What is the origin story that got you to be a practicer, a believer, a liver of this law of attraction, and an author?
Yeah, so I actually, 18 years ago, you see, it was a 4-year gap. 18 years ago is when I first learned about the law of attraction. And at that point, I was a young, struggling entrepreneur, just like looking for, the secret to happiness and success. I mean, we're all looking for that, right? And basically, I was looking through all these different schools of thought, reading all these books. And law of attraction was really just one modality of many that I was exploring and experimenting with. And at the time, I kind of viewed it as very inconsistent. It was hit and miss. I had some wins, some not so much. And I didn't find out till a few years later that, the law of attraction was plenty consistent. It was me who wasn't consistent. I was the issue, because, I would start to use it. I would start to get results, and then I would stop inexplicably. And I hit a really hard wall, 4 years later, where I basically lost my company and my girlfriend of 3 years all within the same week. And she didn't like break up in person or even like over a phone call. She broke up over text. Like, that's how rough it was. And to be dramatic, it kind of felt like I lost like 90% of my life within like just a couple of days. And I had to like look really hard, really hard look in the mirror. It's like, okay, Andrew, something's not working here, because obviously, you're wasting your years. You've lost your business, you've lost your relationship. You got to do something. And I had this weird simultaneous, epiphany and moment of indignation where like, I remember like, well, of all these things that I tried, that law of attraction thing seemed to kind of work whenever I did it and didn't stop. And I said, you know what? I don't care what happens. I don't care when it happens. I don't care how it happens. Why? I don't care about any of that. I'm going to go all in with this once and for all. And when I say all in, I don't mean all day, every day, because as upset as I was, as motivated as I was, I still understood human nature enough to realize that it was not sustainable to like think happy thoughts all day, every day. But what I could do is what I had been doing, and basically taking 5 or 10 minutes every day to go through these manifesting methods, whether it's gratitude or visualization or scripting or a combination. And while I'm at it, I can tweak the methods that I knew into a way that was a little bit, better for me, more conducive to the way I like to do things, to make it easier for me to be consistent. And, I tell people, Derek, it was almost like a movie, because like within 2 weeks of doing this, I didn't feel 100% better, but I felt way better than anyone with a broken heart had any business feeling. 3 months later, I'm in a brand new, way healthier relationship. 4 months later, I'm making way more money than at any point in my life up until that point. And 6 months later, like, everything's different. I'm waking up happy and fulfilled. I'm in the best shape of my life because I've been started like training again. I actually, I started working out and training again just to feel better about myself. I wasn't intentionally trying to lose weight, but I ended up losing like 25 pounds without trying in like 7.5 weeks. Like, all these things came together. And through this experience, I learned the hard way that this law of attraction thing, or whatever you want to call it, it works when you work it. And it changed me. I'm like, okay, now that I know this, cool, let me get on with my life. But it wasn't until 11 years later where I wanted to do something new in my business. And this had always been like in the back of my mind, like writing a book about it. But I mean, I don't know, it's kind of like, to an extent, it almost feels like an arrogant thing. Like, who am I to tell people about the law of attraction? But I'm like, well, Andrew, even if no one reads the book, you've got to give yourself permission to do this. And when I finally gave myself permission, that's like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have to do something that no one's ever seen before. And hence the book. And the reason that I call it the last law of attraction book that you'll ever need to read. And, the reason I hopefully stand by that is, most law of attraction books, they will hopefully explain the law of attraction in a very clear way that's actually, user friendly. And they'll also hopefully provide user friendly, manifesting methods that you could implement instantly. I did those, but what I also wanted to add into the mix was the psychology of holding up a mirror in front of readers and explaining to them why, for all those other books that they've read and all the programs they've been through, why they get excited about law of attraction, why they start to use it, why they start to get results, and they stop anyway. Because if you could just get people to stop stopping long enough to get a result, then it's not even like the book teaching them, it's their own life experience. And that was really the intention. But notice there was like, I don't say I wasted 11 years because I learned a lot in that process, but I waited 11 years before finally giving myself permission to do something with the insight that I already had, back in 2008.
So in 2008, from losing your business, what was that business? And then how did in 4 months, how are you making more money than you had made before? What have you been doing for money in between like that business closing and then your $100,000 last LOA book?
Yeah, well, so it was actually more. It was 100,000 copies. It wasn't 100. Like, fortunately, it was actually more than $100,000 through the law of attraction book.
I mean 100,000 copies.
Yeah, I mean, 100,000. It's a good number either way, right? So, the business actually had like multiple lives. Like when I first started, it was an art production studio. I was trying to like become like the next Jim Davis who did Garfield. I wanted to like, just have my own comic strip, like be in old newspapers, which at the time I was even starting to realize was more of like a dying breed. Like newspapers aren't the same anymore, obviously. But it was funny when I was doing that. The syndicates, as they call them, like the agents, they weren't very impressed by my work, but I was very good in the meantime of like networking and doing like graphic design, like finding my way of doing like odd jobs through whatever little level of artistic talent that I had. And I basically shifted my business like, okay, let me teach other people like, how to network, how to market, how to get themselves out there. And it was a thing where I was I was finding myself running into like, I guess, clients that were not very honest, and I didn't want to keep working with them. I couldn't find like honest clients that I would feel good about teaching them like the psychological tactics to. And it was just like a tiring, exhaustive process where, the relationship was falling apart because I couldn't give that the kind of attention that it needed. And when I finally was like, okay, this thing is on the brink of dying anyway, let me kill it now to try to save the relationship, too little, too late. In terms of the financial comeback, it was a combination of things, because once I started doing the methods, not only would I start to get really like good clients coming to me, but I also like scored like a 9-to-5 job also. That was for that time for me, very high paying. So it was this combination of this really high paying job and then finally clients coming to me. That's like, oh, wow. It kind of like, it evolved into this weird thing where it's like all these things I'd been searching for so desperately for 4 years, trying to figure it out. I wouldn't call it like, effortless, but I would call it smooth. I would call it consistent. It was like a nice, easy stream of things happening. And me being in a place where like, I was finally ready to just embrace and receive it.
And that 9-to-5 job, like, was that like a dream job, or was that just something to help get you to the next step? I think that's an important thing to talk about, is everyone's looking for their dream job, but maybe this is just the stone that gets you to the next.
It definitely wasn't a dream job in the sense that, like, for me, the dream job is working for myself, which is why I was in business to begin with, for myself. But it was a dream scenario in the sense that what I wanted from the job was I wanted something that, where I was around good people. I wanted a job with an easier schedule, because knowing, one, I would need to decompress from killing myself for 4 years, but two, so that I could work with clients when I wanted to. So basically it was a dream scenario in the sense of like, I was around good people. I understood what I was doing. I was very good at what I did. and it worked for basically it was conducive to the life that I was trying to build. It was a complement to it. It was supportive of that. It didn't hold me back. And that was all I ever really wanted in that job and in that experience and in that situation.
And how long were you there?
Oh, I was there for, a few years, but like, it's like basically like while I was there, I was giving myself permission to experiment, like, learn more about like what I want to do in my own business, marketing. I ended up like basically I ended up going down a rabbit hole of copywriting, which if any copywriters out there know, it's a very weird, interesting, like I wouldn't call it like a subset. Like it's this thing that like is responsible for like trillions of dollars of sales, but most people don't even like, unless you know about copywriting, it's like this underground thing that people don't really understand.
Okay, so it took you 11 years from this spark. You had this spark. Oh, I should write a book. I should write a book and share everything. But it took you 11 years, and I think a lot of people get to that point where they have a knowing inside them, and then they get stuck. They get stuck at that crossroads of should and must. Like I should stay on this path because it's safe. Like I know this is my known world, but there's that must that is calling them, and so often people just stay on that path of should because it's known. And so, and with our psychology or human psychology, we have the tendency to stay in our known world, even if it's hell, just because we know what hell is going to look like the next day. So let's talk about that process and taking that idea, that spark, and turning it into reality, and how fear played a part in this relationship.
Yeah. So, wow, so much to say here. Because I tried other little things. Like this book isn't like, I'm not like an overnight success. Like, I tried like in the years leading up before I decide to do that. I was almost like half-hearted in trying other projects because I was almost trying to force it, but I failed a lot before this happened. In terms of fear, like, because you're mentioning it, like how it could be hell, but it's safe. And everyone's always, they've got to be responsible for themselves and make their own choices. But for me, safe isn't always necessarily healthy. And I think people need to remember, like, if you're in a job that's miserable, like, okay, like, is it worth the heart attack? Is the paycheck worth the heart attack? And let's be honest here, it is scary going out on your own and making a decision and taking that leap, because we are rooted towards survival. And, as miserable as that constant paycheck is, well, it's, survival above all else, right? For me, I think a part of the process was giving myself permission to make like side hustles and kind of feel my way through until it felt for me like I can finally take the leap. And some people, maybe they need to take the leap right away. Some people, maybe they need a side hustle. Like everyone really needs to feel into it for themselves, but they also need to understand that whether you do it from a side hustle perspective or you go all in, fear is a part of the process. And the reason it's part of the process is because, and I talk about this in the book, not in this context, but there's a part of our mind, and I call it the ego, but I mean, it could be anything that you want, that its only interest is in your survival. Meaning it's not interested in your happiness. It's not interested in your fulfillment. It's not interested in your comfort. It's just interested in survival. So if you're making any kind of deviation from where you are in your life right now, well, I mean, your ego's been looking around for all this time and realizing that you're alive right now. Therefore, any kind of new decision might create a different probability of that survival. And the way it explains, like, maybe everyone out there wants to be like, rich and success. They want to be rich and famous, right? But for all your ego knows is when you become famous, you're going to get a stalker, and that's a threat to your survival. For all your ego knows is when you get rich, you're going to have family, distant family coming out of the woodwork trying to sue you for your home or whatever, your new cars, your mansion, whatever it might be. So there's always going to be this fear. For me, the key is in the recognition of like, okay, that's part of the process. It's kind of like working out. If you want to make progress working out, there's going to be pain. And, maybe hopefully it won't be like a pain of an injury, but lifting those weights or running that treadmill or doing that class, like the pain part is inevitable. A little cliche, pain's inevitable, suffering is optional. Same with when you're going out on your own, because like, this option to suffer in a bad situation rather than trying to change it is different than the pain and the fear and the frustration and the doubt that you're going to experience no matter what. Every single person that you see that's successful, some might want to like play it off like, they're the greatest thing going and like they never had a doubt. And some like to be dramatic, like, oh, I was so scared, but more just like to tell a story and to sell whatever they're trying to sell. The truth of the matter is fear is a part of the process. And the sooner people, understand that and accept that, the better they can be at embracing and navigating it and not just understanding like it's just part of those things. And the real key to success is in navigating that fear and the doubts and the setbacks that will be inevitable no matter how good you are, no matter how much you think you've prepared.
Thank you for that. So much of what you shared is very inspiring to me and to everyone listening, no doubt. But a lot of this has been brought to you by mentors and helpers that you've met along the way. So let's take a moment to acknowledge some of these people, some people that have helped you on your path. And I'm sure there's many, many. So we don't need to name them all, but let's just name a select few that have left a real impact on you. Who were they, and what were the primary takeaways you learned from them that you've incorporated into your being?
Yeah. So the first one I want to bring up is Eben Pagan, who I've only met once. And the reason I'm picking someone I've only met once is because I want to let people know it's like, if you could find a mentor in your life personally, awesome, but don't feel like you're restricted to that. It could be as simple as going online, doing research, and finding somebody that knows what they're talking about. So either way works. The thing about like Eben that I love is because he's always about like, he teaches like marketing. So I learned like human psychology, but he's also about self-improvement. He was like this really weird, interesting combination of teaching you that like, listen, you've got to always be improving yourself. And part of that is in understanding your own psychology, like understanding psychology, period. When you understand psychology in general, you're going to navigate the world better. You're going to do better in sales. You're going to do better in a job position, but you're also going to do better for yourself. Because if you understand human psychology, that includes you. So you can understand when you're getting in your own way, when you're making up an excuse that isn't really valid. Another mentor, Todd McFarlane, who also I've met him in person once, and then I interviewed him a couple of years ago and I had that one conversation. Other than that, what I've learned from him is by studying and watching what he does. And the thing that I always loved about Todd McFarlane was people think that he's like this legendary comic book artist who then happened to start businesses. For me, I always viewed him as like a very brilliant entrepreneur who happened to draw comic books and use that as his inroad towards business success. But at heart, he's an entrepreneur. At heart, he understands in what it means to connect with the wants and needs of his consumer and actually delivering that to them with a level of quality that most people can't do. So Eben on the psychology, Eben on the self-improvement, Todd on the business savvy, and also Todd on the understanding of making sure, being very intentional that you're putting quality out there. Because, when you start and you have those inevitable setbacks, the setbacks will be a lot easier when you're actually trying to put quality out there, when you're trying to understand people and you're trying to serve them through those understandings.
All right. So anyone else? There's Eben and Todd McFarlane. Anyone from the LOA world?
So that's a funny thing. So when I learned about law of attraction, I spent 4 years. I read so many books. I read Abraham Hicks, which, for the most part, I resonated with the message. I have obviously, read Rhonda Byrne and The Secret. And even though Rhonda Byrne is known for The Secret, her book, The Magic, to me is even better because it's basically taking you down a road of gratitude for a full month. I enjoyed Mike Samuels, who he wrote Just Ask the Universe. And the thing that I loved about Mike, and actually, I've become friends with Mike since. And the one thing that I actually took from him that I try to bring into my book was a clarity and simplicity. This isn't about making something like complicated so that it feels grand. It's about making it as simple and easy and user-friendly and implementable as possible. And from Michael was one of those people where I was always working on that anyway, but he was the first first law of attraction author where like I could recognize like, wow, he's writing something in a very accessible way. If I ever want to write any books, law of attraction or anything else, that's how you want to do it. You want to make it accessible to the reader.
Well, you did that with your book. Your book is very accessible, really easy to read, understand. I've listened to it on audiobook and read it, and it's a winning format in either of the either of those delivery methods.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Derek.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for writing the book and recording it. You talked about Esther Hicks and Abraham. Esther Hicks, Jerry, and Abraham. I'm a big fan of their work, and you said you resonate with most of what they say. What do you not resonate with?
Yeah, so it's not even what they say. It's okay. I am going to complain about them, but I want to preface it. It's like, listen, everyone, please make your up your own mind. Don't let my opinion color your view. The one problem that I have with them, and this is probably like part of what inspired my book, is I feel like they can get to the point faster and easier. Like, and by the way, they're awesome. Go on YouTube and look up a problem and put Abraham Hicks in there, and you'll find like a 20-minute recording of them just like taking it down. And my complaint is like, oh, that's great, but you could have said that in 5 minutes also. So, and again, that's just like the egotistical, motivated author in me, like literally like giving them credit, thinking that Abraham can say it in a faster way. But listen, everyone has their own message. But again, for the most part, like, they're awesome. And the thing I love about them, and I think the thing that really carries through in the same message for my work, is when people have questions, all I'm trying to do is to guide them towards what do they need to do in order to feel good while thinking about what they have or what they want, or both. And I've never heard Abraham articulated in that way, but that is my interpretation for the most part of their message whenever I see them answering a question.
Could you repeat that one more time so I can let that sink in?
Yeah. So I've never, and I'll say the thing again also, I've never heard Abraham articulated in this way, but what I've gotten from them for the most part, whenever I hear them answer any wide array of questions, is they want you to feel good while thinking about what you have in your life, what you want to come into your life, or both of them, both things, what you have or what, because basically, to make it even shorter, they just want you to feel good. It's like, okay, well, what do I feel good about? Well, those things. Because when you feel good, that's when you open up your vibration. That's when you're letting things come in.
And your time-lapse method that you talked about earlier is a great way to bring that into manifestation.
Thank you. And my hope, Derek, is like every method. And that's why, like, I tell people, like, listen, any method, whether it's my book or anyone else, the best method, like, Andrew, what's the best, most powerful method? The best, most powerful method is the one that you actually enjoy. It's like, it's not like this one specific, like, if you enjoy it so that you can do it consistently and actually feel good while thinking about what you have or what you want, or both, for at least 5 minutes every day, that's the magic. And it doesn't have to be one method. It could be a combination. Maybe you do something for a month and you start to get bored. All right, cool. Let me try another method. Let me see what else is on the menu.
And then there's the resistance. Resistance is a big factor in the hero's journey. And author Stephen Pressfield, he describes resistance as that negative force in the world that keeps us from fulfilling our dreams. What are your strategies at overcoming resistance? And they could come in many forms. But yeah, how do you deal with resistance? That thing that keeps you in bed, or from not writing that book, or not going for that workout. When it arises, and it always will, how do you meet it?
So my first, I'm a very strategic person. Like, I'm all about strategy. So for me, strategically, it begins with a recognition that it's always going to be there. Maybe it's going to be a very little, or maybe it's going to be really intense. It's always going to be there. And the second you think, oh, I'm done, it's going to creep around anyway. So the best thing is, like, it really is about navigating. It's not about escaping resistance. It's about navigating resistance. At least to me. For me, this is how what's personally worked. It comes down to a combination of gratitude for what I have, ease with the knowledge that no matter what, things are going to work out, whether this resistance holds me back today or not. But then ask myself, like, okay, what's worth it to me? Like, is my health worth just grinding past this, just getting to the workout? It's like, I think a lot of people also, like, it's not even the workout itself, it's getting to the gym, or literally popping the DVD into the player, or literally queuing it up to stream on their computer. It's not even like the workout itself. It's the getting yourself ready to begin. Because once you start, it's just like, even if it's a bad workout, even if you're not putting your all into it, the key is beginning. So for me, it's an understanding of, like, knowing that it's going to be inevitable, knowing that if I just begin, it's going to do so much of a lot of the heavy lifting for me, and knowing that if I don't do it, let me not judge myself and exasperate the problem, and instead try to find a way of being grateful and motivated so that I can do something else.
Very good. Thank you for that. So much wisdom and gold shared on this conversation. But through it all, through all the highs and lows, that is this life experience, what do you feel has been the greatest life lesson you learned on your path that you feel called in this moment to share with us?
The biggest lesson is, it sounds so simple. It's not, it sounds simple to the point where it's easy to discard. But if you can just find 5 minutes out of your day to feel grateful or feel good in any way, shape, or form, you are doing yourself a huger service than you could ever realize. And by the way, if the law of attraction is a lie, if I'm lying right now, and you're not going to manifest that thing by those 5 minutes every day, single day, think about the fact that the 5 minutes that you spend is a win in and of itself, because it's 5 minutes where you're not stressing over the job or over the spouse or over the economy or over the world. Physiologically speaking, it's 5 minutes that are healthy for you, where you're lowering, you're altering your body chemistry in a natural way, where you're lowering the stress, you're upping the endorphins. So just like the lesson is, find 5 minutes every single day to feel good, because no matter what happens afterwards, but again, spoiler alert, you could expect good things, but no matter what happens afterwards, it's a win in that moment. And if people realize that, they'll be more likely to actually engage in the process, and they'll see what I mean, because it doesn't matter how much I say it, seeing is believing. You got to see it for yourself and experience it for yourself. And that's where the real joy, the real results will come.
And if anyone's looking for some strategies on how to get that started, the book is right behind you. The last law of attraction book you'll ever need. I couldn't recommend it enough. I asked all guests a final 2 questions, and we got to that point. In 3 words, how would you describe the experience you're having on this earth? Doesn't have to be a sentence, but 3 words that would describe the experience you're having here in this reality plane.
Ooh, wow. 3 words. And it doesn't have to be a sentence.
No, you can elaborate on the words too if you wish, or not.
Okay. Gratitude, challenge, unknown. And what I mean by that is gratitude, challenge. And so gratitude in that, I've made being grateful a huge part of my journey. Challenge in that even through that gratitude, it's inevitable. So I'm finding my way to navigate it. And unknown is in the recognition of all right, cool. I have this book where fortunately, a lot of people like it, and I've sold 100,000 copies. Where do we go from here? Right? Because I want to hit over 1 million. Do I necessarily know how I'm going to do it? I mean, I know how I'm going to try. Do I know the challenges that are going to come up along the way? I can anticipate a few. Do I know what else is going on in life and in the world? There's a recognition that there's always unknown. And if you embrace and accept that, and inevitably, I found in my experience, you're more prepared for when it comes to deal with whatever it is, and not just survive, but ideally, hopefully, thrive.
Thank you. We've played around with time. We've examined your past. We've discussed your now. And as the magicians we are, I'm going to take us into the future. I'm going to take us into the future 80 and we'll be alongside an 85-year-old Andrew Cap. Who is that 85-year-old Andrew? Where are you? Who are you surrounded by? What is the legacy that you've left here on your time on Earth? And what is the predominant feeling in your energy, in your vibration?
So before I answer, I'll tell you, this is the first time I'm thinking about this. I don't think about, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the way I run my life. I don't often think about that. So to intend it now, because it really isn't more of the unknown. I'm definitely, I'm by a beach for sure. I'm surrounded by really, surrounded by high quality people. And I'm operating on a level where I'm almost looking back on the version of me now who like I didn't even realize how much more I had to learn and how much more I now know. Like it's a clear understanding that like for as much as I learned in the last 20 years, whoa, the amazing things that I'm going to discover, both, you know, preferable and not so preferable on the way to being that person. So hopefully a lot wiser and a lot more grounded in who he is.
And the predominant energetic vibration that you're inhabiting.
Ease.
Ease, ease, ease. And I want you to take a moment, Andrew, and I want you to sit in this ease, and I want you to step into that heart, to the soul of this 85-year-old Andrew. Everything that you said alongside the beach, high quality people, and knowing so much more than you know at this time. Step into that feeling of ease, step into that man's heart for a moment with your next breath. And I'm going to bring us back. I'm going to bring us back to this infinite now, 2022. And that 85-year-old Andrew, he whispers a message into your ear. What does he say?
Keep going.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. Well, Andrew, it's been a real pleasure. For people wanting to connect with you more, they could find you on Instagram at Andrew Cap Insta, or on your website, awesomemarvelous.com. What's in your future? After they read this book, what is next? In the epilogue, we talk about the gravity of the cosmos. What's that?
Yeah, well, okay. So first of all, Derek, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for your very insightful and, you know, awesome questions, really pulling a lot out of me. And, you know, like if people go to awesomemarvelous.com, like you mentioned, there's the links for both my books, but there's also a link like, by the way, you know, I'll gladly have you buy the book, but if you don't want to pull out your wallet, it also has a link to my YouTube channel where I do a lot of free content because I want to make sure that everyone's served, whether they're spending money or not. Gravity of the Cosmos is a 90-day program where basically what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, you know these methods, go out and do it. Oh, you need a little help? Okay, well, in this program for the next 90 days, I'm going to email you a lesson guiding you through the methods and basically help you along so that you end up getting 90 consecutive days of this work of these few minutes a day of these methods. In terms of the future for me, like 2023, it's more about just being more intentional about trying to create more content and value in support of the message, because this book is like, it's still my baby and it's still my primary my primary focus of what I want to accomplish, because whether people read it or listen to it or just watch videos about it that I give for free on YouTube, it's really my intention and hope that I can continue to serve people and get them again to a very easily accessible place where they're feeling good while thinking about what they have or what they want or both, since in my experience that's always the gateway towards good things.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that. To close every conversation on Welcome to the Winner Circle, we bring our fist in for a digital fist bump, a choice to step into the winner circle. Boom. Thank you so much, Andrew. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Derek. I appreciate you, my friend.
It's a wrap on today's call.